Today we're going to be diving into this pretty curious situation with Stripe.
Yeah.
A big name in online payments, as I'm sure most of you know, and a story that involves, of all things, a cartoon duck.
A duck.
You heard that right? A duck.
It's certainly an interesting case, especially with all the tech layoffs we've been seeing lately.
Exactly. And for those who might not be, completely up to speed, Stripe is a huge player in online payments. They're actually the second largest tech startup in the entire Bay Area.
Yeah.
But just like we've been seeing with so many other companies in tech, they've had to make some tough decisions about their workforce.
That's right. They just recently announced layoffs affecting 300 employees, mostly in product engineering and operations roles.
Oh.
And what's interesting is this actually isn't the first time that Stripe has had to downsize.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back in 2022, they let go of 14% of their workforce.
Oh, wow.
So to see another round of layoffs does raise some questions.
Yeah, I mean, 2 rounds of layoffs in such a short period.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of suggests that there might be more to the story than just, the tech industry having a little bit of a wobble.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It could point to issues with maybe overhiring in the beginning, overly ambitious growth projections, or even just some strategic missteps. I think it'd be really interesting to look more into Stripe's financial performance and see, how they make these decisions to really understand the full picture of these layoffs.
Totally. Now, about that duck I mentioned earlier, it's a strange little twist in this whole thing. Multiple sources have reported that some employees who were laid off received an email notification, and wait for it,
Okay.
with a picture of a cartoon duck attached to it.
Yeah, a PDF captioned U.S. non-California duck, to be exact.
Okay.
And even more confusingly, some of those emails also had the wrong termination date on them.
Oh, no, you've got to admit that's a bit odd. I mean, getting laid off is never fun, but then to get a notification with a random duck and the wrong date, that just adds a whole other level of what is going on to an already pretty tough experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it's possible that it was a technical error or just a placeholder image that accidentally got sent out.
Yeah.
But it does kind of make you wonder about the level of care and attention to detail that was put into this whole process.
Right. Stripe's chief people officer did issue an apology and said it was a notification error, but it definitely highlights that companies need to be incredibly sensitive and meticulous in how they communicate, especially when it comes to something as big as losing your job.
Yeah, and I think this whole thing kind of brings up a bigger point about how tech companies deal with layoffs in general. I mean, we've seen this trend of companies just sending out these impersonal mass emails.
Yeah, it does feel very dehumanizing in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, behind every single one of those 300 positions is a person with a life, with career aspirations, probably people who depend on them.
Yeah, exactly. And while emails might be logistically efficient, it's so important for these companies to remember that they're dealing with actual human beings, and to communicate with them with empathy and respect.
Totally. So, okay, we have this strange situation with Stripe. On one hand, they're this major player in the tech world making these tough business decisions that are affecting a lot of people. And on the other hand, we've got this bizarre duck thing that just makes you wonder about their internal processes and how they communicate.
Yeah, it really highlights the need for companies to really think about the human impact of their actions, even when they're dealing with tough financial realities.
Agreed. It'll be interesting to see, what specific roles were affected by these layoffs. How might these cuts impact Stripe's development moving forward?
Yeah.
What does this tell us about their strategic priorities going forward? These are the kinds of questions we're going to be exploring as we continue our deep dive into this situation.
Definitely. It's definitely something to think about. I mean, losing people in product development or engineering could really slow down innovation, even affect their ability to compete in such a fast-moving market.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thinking back to those 2022 layoffs we talked about, I'd be interested to know if there are any similarities between the roles they cut then and the ones they cut this time around. It might show us a pattern or a shift in Stripe's overall strategy.
Right. Analyzing those details could give us more insight into where the company's headed. If they were really focused on a specific product line that they're now scaling back, you might see that reflected in the types of roles they're eliminating.
Okay, so let's talk about the practical side of things for the employees who were let go. We know that back in 2022, Stripe offered a pretty generous severance package.
Yeah.
14 weeks of pay, an annual bonus, continued healthcare coverage, career support services.
Right. At the time, it was seen as a pretty responsible way to handle layoffs. But we haven't heard anything official yet about what the severance package looks like this time around.
That silence is a little worrying, isn't it? Especially after that whole duck thing, you'd think they'd be extra careful to communicate clearly and quickly about what kind of support they're offering to those employees.
I agree. Transparency is so important in these situations. Not knowing the details of their severance can create a lot of anxiety and uncertainty for the people affected.
Yeah, it does make you wonder if maybe they're still working out the details or if they're hesitant to announce anything until they have a clearer picture of their overall financial situation.
It's possible, but whatever the reason is, this lack of communication can really hurt both the employees and Stripe's reputation as an employer. It can erode trust and even make the remaining employees feel uneasy.
You're right. And, this whole situation with Stripe, the financial decision, the layoffs, the communication issues, it really makes you think about the bigger picture of the tech industry as a whole.
I see what you mean. The tech sector has been going through a lot lately. We've
Yeah.
seen a wave of these big layoffs at different companies.
Yep.
And some experts are even saying that this trend might continue as the industry adjusts to the changing economy and what investors are expecting.
It's definitely a trend worth watching, and it raises some serious questions about the future of work, especially in tech, which has always been seen as this engine of innovation and job creation.
Definitely. With all the advances in automation and AI, a lot of people are worried that mass layoffs might become more common, not just in tech, but across all kinds of industries.
It's a valid concern. It brings up some really complex ethical and societal questions. How do we make sure that technological progress benefits everyone, not just select few? How do we prepare our workforce for these potential changes and give them the skills they'll need to succeed in a job market that's constantly evolving?
Those are questions we need to address as a society. And there are no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have, and sooner rather than later.
I totally agree. We can't just ignore the potential human cost of all this progress. We need to be proactive in finding solutions that balance innovation with compassion, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate in and benefit from these advancements we're making.
I think the Stripe situation, as weird as it is with the duck incident, is a good reminder that even in the fast-paced, often impersonal world of tech, we can't forget about the human element.
Yeah, exactly. And while these layoffs might make sense from a purely financial standpoint, we need to think about how they impact real people's lives, their families, and their communities.
It all comes back to finding a more humane and sustainable way forward. A future where technology works for us, not the other way around.
Well said. It's about finding that balance between progress and empathy, making sure everyone has a voice as we navigate these uncharted waters of technological advancement.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're at this kind of turning point. This crazy fast pace of technology is exciting, but it also brings a lot of challenges that we really got to face head on. Yeah, it's like we're building the plane as we're flying it. Got to make sure everyone's got a parachute.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What can we do to make sure the future of work is more fair and humane, even with all these technological changes happening?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is we need better social safety nets, like universal basic income or expanded unemployment benefits. That could give some support to people who lose their jobs because of automation.
Makes sense. If machines are taking jobs, we got to find ways to help those people.
Yeah.
What about the skills gap, though? How do we prepare people for jobs that don't even exist yet?
Education and retraining are going to be super important. We need to invest in programs that teach people the skills they'll need for this new economy, like coding, data analysis, problem solving. Those are going to be in high demand.
And I bet soft skills will be more important than ever, too, right? Like communication, collaboration, critical thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the things that make us different from machines, and they'll be important in any field, no matter how much automation happens.
So it sounds like we need a kind of multi-pronged approach. Stronger safety nets, good retraining programs, and a focus on developing those human skills. But what about the role of government and policy in all of this?
Well, the government has a big part to play in setting things up for a fairer future of work. Things like investing in infrastructure, supporting research and development, creating incentives for businesses to create good jobs, all of that's important.
And what about regulations for AI and automation? Do we need more oversight to make sure these technologies are used responsibly?
That's a big question, and it's being debated right now. Some people say we need stricter regulations to prevent job losses and make sure AI is ethical. Others worry that too much regulation will slow down innovation.
Sounds like finding that balance is going to be key. We need to encourage innovation, but also protect workers and make sure everyone benefits from this progress.
Exactly. It's a tough challenge, but one we got to tackle head on if we want a future where technology works for us, not against us.
Well, this has given us a lot to think about. The Stripe situation, as strange as it is with that duck thing, has really made us think about the bigger picture of the future of work and the challenges we face as a society.
It reminds us that even with all this technology and economic stuff happening, we got to put people first, be empathetic, and work towards a future that's fair for everyone.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. The future of work is being shaped right now, and we all have a part to play in making sure it's a future that works for all of us.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and let's work together to create a future where technology helps everyone and brings us together instead of pushing us apart.
That's a great way to end it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.